The energy that was produced from that strike, it actually hit a fault line. You're going to get all these magnetic anomalies. And that little blue orb dancing in that field when it was being made. My name is Thomas Johnson, and originally from Dearborn, Michigan. Moved to Ohio in 1978 to go into a business full-time of collecting fossils and selling on the worldwide market. And I became interested in the crater at Serpent Mound by reading the literature by Dr. John Locke, who was the first geologist in the United States. He started the Geological Society of America, but in his notes, he mentioned the Serpent Mound crater, and he referred to it as the sunken mountain. And that always intrigued me because the geology was upside down inside of this crater, which is, there's no place on Earth like it. So that drew my interest, and I had to come here and check it out. So, but that was just kind of on the back burner in my mind for quite a while. But I came to this area by doing research for the National Museum in Washington, and at Cedar Creek Lake, about an hour and a half away from this site. And I was doing research on the state fossil, which is the trilobite, Nisotylus maximus to be exact, and one of maybe 20,000 species of trilobites in the world. So I'd always been interested in trilobites, and I had quite a collection accumulated, which the museum in Washington ended up with on a loan for 26 years. And so I came here by way of the World Peace Mission to this very site in 1996. I had gone to Egypt, and I was there with some folks, and they said, "Do you know where the Serpent Mound is?" And of course, I said, "Yes, I do. I live about 12 miles away." And, well, we need pictures of it. So I drove up past this old house that was for sale, and I stopped in the parking lot across the street and wrote down the phone number and took some pictures of Serpent Mound for him and called this real estate agent. And lo and behold, the house had just dropped. The price had dropped in half that very day. And I said, "Well, I think I'm interested in it." So it was the first thing that I as far as a commercial property or a house that I'd ever owned. And I approached the bank with what I had, and being a small business owner, it was tough to get a loan. And of course, my mom stepped up and said, "You really need to get that house." And I said, "Okay, I'll get it." So she helped me out with it. And as soon as I moved into this house, I found out that it was haunted. And that's how it all began, really. And is the rest of it's just been a roller coaster ride. And it's opened up all kinds of doors to people. I opened up a rock shop here in 96 when I moved in, and started meeting people from all over the world. And lo and behold, they were all coming to Serpent Mound. I guess it's kind of like a bucket list for a lot of people.
Hi, I'm Linda Eastburn of Linda Eastburn YouTube channel, and I have a new book out called Threshold to Encounters. It's about 40 years of research and experience with all of these wild cryptids that many of you I know have encountered yourself. You can find it on Amazon.com. Tell me a little bit about this house you bought, because this puts you in close proximity to the Serpent Mound, and obviously you were drawn to this house, I know. So what do you think caused the haunting, and what type of haunting did you experience there?
Well, it's because of the situation where it's situated on a piece of ground. I believe the ground is haunted. It's on the edge of an asteroid crater, and the crater's 5 miles wide and originally 6,000 feet deep. And it was made during the Mississippian era, about 300 million years ago, when North America, well, it wasn't North America yet, it was still Pangea, and it was south of the equator, close to the South Pole, when this asteroid struck an ocean. And lo and behold, the continent moved all the way up to where it is today. And The ocean's receded and the crater is still here and still visible. But the energy that was produced from that strike, it actually hit a fault line. And as far as we know, it's one of the only places on Earth where an asteroid has hit a fault. So the fault is producing a certain amount of energy. And then on top of that, you have an impact of disturbing all of the layers of the Earth that are magnetically, have a magnetic signature. And when you disturb a rock column that deep, 6,000 feet, you're going to get all these magnetic anomalies. So that's what's in the ground all across this vortex. And it affects weather, people, cars, computers, batteries, you name it. But the house itself, as soon as I purchased it, the landowner, the ex-landowner, who was a mortician, showed up and he says, "Have you seen any spoofs yet?" And I thought, what the heck is a spoof? I mean, I've never run into anything like that in my life. And he says, "Oh, well, you'll find out." So lo and behold, I did. I went on a little trip, went down to Louisville on a collecting trip one day, just shortly after I purchased it. And my wife's grandmother was living here, my ex-wife, and she was a psychic. And I came home from this trip, and she says, "Tom," she grabbed my arm and she says, "Is that you?" And I said, "Well, yes, it is." And she says, "Well, you were here 2 hours ago walking around and you wouldn't talk to me." And I said, "No, no, no. I was on the road traveling. There's no way I could have been here." And she described me. I had brown clothes on. I had disheveled hair and everything. I was just messy looking, like I had been digging in a hole somewhere. And I said, "No." And she said, "Well, you wouldn't talk to me. You went from room to room and then you disappeared." And so I thought, well, she must be crazy. I said, "There's no way." Well, it happened repeatedly over the years of me being seen somewhere. Like I'd be out in the yard working in the garden, but yet I'd be in the rock shop waiting on people. It happened to my wife several times. It happened to the people that did the investigation on the house for spirits. They wired the house for sound, and lo and behold, they got replicated. And it's just an ongoing thing. It even happens to our cats. So it happens to everything, and it's just a reoccurring thing, but it has to do with the magnetic anomalies affecting the timeline. And that's the only way I look at it. I look at time as kind of like an onion. You have layer upon layer upon layer and all these dimensions, and these magnetic anomalies kind of lower the veil, if you will, and allow things to come through. And it's just it's kind of mind-boggling when you think about it. But I've
Oh, yeah.
always heard about entities and Doppler gainers, but this is three-dimensional. I mean, it's just as real as you could reach out and touch them.
You think that all of this then is related to the fact that this crater exists and it impacts the magnetic fields in the
Yeah.
area. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, it just creates this disturbance, if you will. I mean, you could be driving down the road through the crater and your compass on your car is going to be saying you're going north and you're going south, or you're going northwest and you're going southeast. It affects things that way. It affects weather patterns. Storms will come across and reach the edge of the crater and completely disappear. I mean, violent storms. It's just it just affects and it affects car batteries. People will park in the parking lot at Serpent Mound, in my parking lot, anywhere in the crater, brand new cars, rental cars, and their batteries go dead. And the guy that has a little place across the street, a AAA, if you will, towing service, he just laughs about it. He says, "There's nothing wrong with these cars. They're perfectly fine. The alternators are fine, but why are the batteries getting drained?" So that's another thing. And then one of the other instances, well, it happens frequently as well, is people will get out of their car and leave their cars in the ignition or sitting on the dash, and the car doors will lock automatically. And that's happened numerous times. And people, even in my parking lot, people say, my keys are in the car and the door's locked. And I said, well, welcome to the crater.
Well, I know as a researcher of cryptids, aliens, UFOs, Bigfoot, things like this, oftentimes I hear them report batteries being drained in certain areas. Do you think all of this is generally tied to something that is happening within a location, the Earth itself?
No, I just think it's not, thing is, it's not constant. In other words, if your battery goes dead in one spot, you could park there a million times and it wouldn't happen again. It's very I don't know how to put it into words. It's very random. And it's like I can't really describe how it happens. It just happens, and you just have to be prepared for it. I mean, the people that lived here before I lived here, the Undertaker, they jumped ship 25 years before I bought the house, and the house remained vacant for 25 years with all the furniture in it. And the reason they jumped ship is because the spirits, they were, I don't know how you would say that, they were upset because the spirits wouldn't go away. They were very religious and they just thought everything was evil. So they just up and left the house one day and left all the belongings in it. And when I talked to him, and months later, he came back and started talking to me about different places that affected him. And he says, "Where's your bedroom?" And I pointed to this room where I'm sitting now. And he says, "Well, that's the worst room in the house." And, things happen in this room, but usually we just laugh it off and we honor and acknowledge the spirits and they go on their way and they don't bother us. So it's all friendly. I don't try to aggravate anything and tell them to leave or anything like that or holler at them. It's just, you have to humor them and acknowledge them. And they seem to go along with that and leave you alone.
Good. Well, tell me about the crater itself. Give me some history and how that creates this anomaly that's happening in the area.
Okay, so the crater, the center of the crater at the impact is actually a vertical process of rock layers. We're on a horizontal seabed here. Everything is laying nice and flat. And this crater was made before the Appalachian Mountains were made. So you have to go back a long ways in history. But when this crater was made, an asteroid hit. It drove a shock wave down through the bedrock of the ocean. And when it went down about 6,000 feet or so, the shock wave was rebounded back up. And on the way back up, about 1,000 feet below the surface of the ocean, the earth was lifted up vertically to release the pressure. And when it did, it produced a mountain in the very center of the oldest rocks in the crater. So the very top of the crater, where the mountain is, or the uplift, which you can drive across, is 438 million years old. And then the base of the crater, the very floor of the crater, is 320 million years old. So geologically, it's upside down. And what's happened is over the years of this hole in the ocean bed, if you will, got scoured out, and the eastern rim of the crater became like a large ledge, if you will, and it slid down, broke out. The top layers slid down and filled the bottom of the crater in, perfectly horizontal. And you can stand on a rock layer that's 320 million years old and reach out on the wall of the crater and touch something that's 420 million years old, which is another age, Silurian. So geologically, it's upside down. And that's what drew me here. And that's what John Locke put in his notes, that they couldn't figure out what had happened here. So they called it a cryptovolcanic structure. And that remained a cryptovolcanic structure until 1996. And as soon as I opened up the rock shop, I have this knock, knock, knock on the door. And there's these two guys standing there from NASA. And they're wanting specimens of they call the crater at the time. and they said that we want to look at some breccia, which is a material that has been pulverized by the impact and then reconstituted. It kind of looks like concrete. And so I took them to a site, and they collected some of that material, and they disappeared. And 2 years later, they came up with what you'd call a smoking gun. And it was a little particle about the diameter of a human hair. And it's called a PDF, not like PDF file, but a planar deformation of quartz. So it's a micro quartz crystal about the diameter of a human hair, 104 microns, we call. And that little particle has a shock feature on it. It has these really straight lines. And those straight lines are caused by high velocity impact. And you have to have high velocity impact to make that on such a microscopic level. And the way they came up with this is they went to the moon. They went to the Sea of Tranquility. They collected the samples, brought them back, analyzed them. They found out that, well, the moon is basically made of breccia because it's been hit by so many different asteroids over the billions of years. And so everything on the moon has these little PDFs in them, but yet they're hard to find on Earth because you have to go to an impact crater to find them. So when they found them in '96, they finally wrote a book. Geological Survey actually wrote a book in 2003 confirming that it was not a cryptovolcanic structure, but it was actually an asteroid crater, or what we call an astroblem. So with that, everything kind of changed in the area. Of course, the signage is still here from the National Park Service saying that it's a cryptovolcanic structure. But most of the people in the area are starting to learn that it is actually an asteroid crater. What most people don't understand is the magnetic anomalies, how they're affecting everything around this area. So it's just that rock column being disturbed, and the fact that it's on a fault line make it a very unique situation. And when people come here, I mean, they're from all over, all walks of life, they feel that energy. A lot of people are very receptive to energies. Some people are not, but a lot of people that come here say that they feel different when they come into this crater, and they don't know why. So we try to explain it to them and give them a little article on the asteroid crater and give them a piece of the breccia, the rock that was impacted. And it's a nice way to say thank you for coming. And here's a specimen of space and our local rocks combined.
Do you feel the Serpent Mound, which is right there, was built due in that location due to this crater?
No, I think that it's the prominence that it sits on. It's a dolomite, and it's about 80 feet above stream level. And the stream that it's next to, it's about 3 miles short of being a river, goes all the way to the Ohio, and then from the Ohio to the Mississippi, and then to the Gulf of Mexico. So the builders actually came here via river system, and they came from South America. So far as we know, they were in the Adena age, late Archaic, about 350 BC. And they came here to build Serpent Mound as a calendar or a marker for planting and harvesting crops. So they were farmers. And they're the ones that brought in the squash, bean, and corn to North America to support large civilizations. So it was built on this high prominence that could be easily protected and above a waterway where you could travel anywhere in the world. So it was a trade hub between North and South America. And there's trade goods here. You see a lot of stuff in the studies that they did on the burials and just materials that people find in the area. They're not from here. They're either shells from South America, or you'll see things from Yellowstone. You'll see the obsidian and the quartz from Arkansas. A lot of this had to do with the fact that if you went down from here to the Ohio to the Mississippi and then headed north on the Mississippi to the Missouri, you could go all the way out to Yellowstone and collect those minerals. So they were bringing things in from North America and South America and trading back and forth. And back in those days, I mean, that was the thing to do. You had materials to make things. make spears and knives and axes and copper, different types of jewelry, mica. There was just so many different elements that were being brought into this area. And it's just, and they were doing this all over North America. It wasn't just here. Supposedly there's over 100 serpent mounds in North America. So a lot of them are oriented towards the summer solstice, which is the day of rebirth for the sun worshipers. And if you want to go into sun worship, it goes all the way back to the Olmec times 10,000 years ago in South America. So they indoctrinated this belief system of sun worship with the Mayan, the Inca, and the Aztec, Toltecs, Mextecs. All of these South American civilizations knew about planting and harvesting the corn and squash and beans, and they had large civilizations before even North America was being populated.
Well, tell me more about the Serpent Mound. How did this act as a calendar, and how did it help their crops to perform better?
Well, the serpent, the orientations of the folds of the serpent are all balanced towards, on the west side, it's for the summer or the equinox and solstice sunsets. On the east side, it's for the sunrises. So each fold, there's 7 undulations, and each undulation has a different alignment for the sun. And there's also lunar alignments in there. I never really followed that, but apparently the folds are also for the different seasons of the moon or the different positions. How it affected, what was your other question?
How did that impact their crops by having this calendar?
Well, it gives you a timeline of when it's safe to plant. I think that's the most important thing, would be the spring equinox. And a lot of people believe, and there's been a blind study done by, I believe it's Jared Burks, over in Europe, who wrote a book about stones of plenty, seeds of knowledge. He did blind studies at Serpent Mound, and he actually took seeds and put them on the Serpent Mound during the spring equinox. There's a 3-day window there, and we actually do a seed festival at that time. And people bring seeds from all over, and they put them on the mound, and they energize them, and they grow better, and they're more disease resistant. And this is something that this man wrote in his book. And it was a blind study, and it come to find out that the seeds actually did better by being put on the mound. So now there's a movement up there with the people that are running Serpent Mound. They have a sign that do not place anything on the mounds. And so that includes people that are putting seeds on there to have them energized. Like, why would you stop that? But they want it to be a sacred site. They don't want people walking on it or doing anything, making loud noises or playing music, or they're just kind of like anti, I don't know, spiritual, but yet they claim to be a spiritual site or a sacred site. So when we go up there and when we tell other people if they want to go up there on your own and do what you want to do. And if they stop you, well, let us know. But for the most part, people are going up there and doing, they're praying, and some people are doing small ceremonies. The large ceremonies have been basically stopped. We used to do a lot of our events there. And then they just decided to stop all of that and let the Shawnee Indian tribe out in Oklahoma take over the jurisdiction of what goes on there. And of course, they don't want anybody there unless it's their own. So they basically claim the site as their own. And so those things have changed. Those dynamics have changed quite a bit. But we still go up there just about every day. My wife goes up there almost every day and walks around and talks to people and pray. And so it's still good in that way. It's still a valid site, if you will. People are utilizing it. And it's about new beginnings. If you think about what is the summer solstice, it's about the day of rebirth. So a lot of people come here from different walks of life, and they don't know why they're here. Some of them are going through traumatic times in their life, divorces, deaths, disease. and they come to Serpent Mound and they meditate. And it's about getting a new beginning.
Ohio is kind of known, since I do a lot of interviews with people who have cryptid type of experiences, it's kind of known for some of the Bigfoot activity, even some lights and phenomena, and seeing UFO craft and such. Are you familiar with anything like that in the area?
Absolutely. Where do you start? I think that's been going on for a long time here.
That
Uh,
is true.
we're kind of newbies to the area, if you will, but there's been one Bigfoot sighting uh, below Serpent Mound at the what we call the underwater serpent, and two ladies that had visited the shop. Um, we told them about the underwater serpent, how to get there, and they were walking through the woods, and the one lady said to the other, she stopped and turned around and said, "Take a picture of me." And she took a picture of her, and they got back and looked at this, blew it up. And standing next to her in the next to this great big old tree was this character about 8 foot tall that was clear, and all you could see was the outline of him and his eyes. And it's like these cryptids, they're there all the time. They're just invisible, if you will, to most people. And so she showed us that picture and goes, wow, you know. And then as recently as last year, my wife was doing a circle up there, an immersion in the Brush Creek with a group of people. And I guess there was 8 or 10 people in this circle in the stream. And this big rock out of nowhere splashes right down between them in the center of the circle. And it's like, okay, there's nobody around. There's no way you could throw a rock off the ledge of Serpent Mound and throw it a quarter of a mile and land perfectly in between this group of people doing this water ceremony. So it's things like that. They're like reminders, like, okay, I'm here, you know, acknowledge me or look at me, or, you know, just be happy and say, yeah, something just happened that's unique, if you will. And there's other groups in the area. There's actually an Adams County Bigfoot organization, and they were in the shop the other day because we're carving some Bigfoots outside the shop in a tree, and we're doing a whole family. There's one, the main one. Her name is Alma. She's 17 foot tall, with her arm outstretched, and she's got one on her shoulder and one between her legs and one leaning up against her. So it's a family of 4 cryptids, if you will. And so it's just a kind of like a reminder that, you know, they're around and people are seeing them. I mean, I've been hearing reports ever since I moved to Adams County about Bigfoot. Lots of stories of people sighting them in the woods. And you know, you say, okay, I've never seen one myself, but I'd love to. So I figured, well, why not have a carving next to my shop of Bigfoots? If I can't have them, I will have them one way or another.
Do you feel that their appearance there, or the fact that it's such an abundant amount of sightings in that area, has anything at all to do with the anomaly of the crater itself?
It might. It really. Um, there has been some that were actually seen not too long ago. It's been a couple years ago. There was something seen running across the road, and it was the knees were backwards on it as it was running. And you go like, what kind of a, never heard of anything like that. Um, but there was a sighting of one on the river about 30 miles south of us. And there again, it may not have anything to do with the crater itself, but more or less with the faults in the ground, because these faults go all the way down to the New Madrid, runs along the Ohio River. And one story, the local sheriff in Manchester, Ohio, had been there for 10 years. And he was driving down the river road one evening, and a Bigfoot ran across the road with a deer tucked up under its arm and jumped over a guardrail in front of him. And he turned his cruiser around and went back and started looking for this thing. And he realized what he had seen was a Bigfoot. And he went back to his office and he took off his belt and his badge and his gun and said, I quit. And now he's going around the United States and he lectures on Bigfoot. And he actually makes reconstructions of them. They're about 9 foot tall. They're black and furry. They're really neat. But he was taken by that to where he actually gave up his job to pursue it. And so he goes all around talking about Bigfoot.
In my time here, not having known much about Bigfoot a year and a half ago, I've learned a lot. But one of the things that has come to mind is when there is a disturbance in either digging on the ground or cutting down trees, or in other ways that that the ground is disturbed or nature is disturbed in some way. It does seem like there is this change that happens. And so it caught my attention as you talked about this crater changing the dynamics, which then created this electromagnetic anomaly in the area. But it also made me think in terms of people talking about these disturbances, and then suddenly there is this onset of ghost hauntings, cryptids in the area, things of that nature. And so I've been very curious to know if there is any correlation. From what you've said, there could possibly be. Do you have any input on that thought?
No, I think a lot of it involves water in your aquifers, which leads to another anomaly here, crop circles. So there was a crop circle at Serpent Mound back in 2003. At the same time, there was one at the Serpent Mound, which is 20 minutes north of us. And in the spring, that was in the fall, actually summer, August was 2003. And then there was one in West Union, I believe, in the spring, which is another about a half hour south of us towards the river. But the 3 crop circles in one year that were investigated by crop circle researchers, and they were all proven to be something of not of this earth. They were something that wasn't made by Ted and Bob with the string and a board, but made by a weather phenomena. And the one at Serpent Mound and the one at Serpent Mound were made during a thunderstorm. And it was weird. We were on the night before this was made, we were all on a ledge about 8 miles from here in a place called Unity doing a drumming. And we were out there at midnight just drumming away, hundreds of people just having a great time. And this violent thunderstorm came and lightning everywhere like I've never seen. And everybody got in their cars and left because they were afraid of getting hit by lightning. So the next day, the next morning, someone says, hey, go down across from Serpent Mound. There's a crop circle in the field. And it was 270 feet across and 28 inches of soybeans. And this perfect crop circle, if you will, the eye had an eye in it and was facing right towards Serpent Mound. And come to find out that crop circle was made right on top of the fault line that goes through Serpent Mound. Very interesting. And they did the research on it. They found out there was still radiation, some kind of residual radiation in the crop itself, and that it was made by a weather pattern or made during that thunderstorm. And they claimed that there was little orbs dancing around and that little blue orbs dancing in that field when it was being made. And the funny part about it was when the fellow that has the drum circle, he called it Magic Gardens. He's an ex-school teacher. And people started getting pictures back. Man, this is 2003, so people were still sending pictures in and having them develop and whatnot. But he went ahead and started looking at the pictures that the people took at this gathering, and they all had hundreds of orbs in them. And the orbs had geometrical patterns in them. And you go like, what? And every picture was different, all different types of cameras. So he made an album of those pictures, and he still has it to this day. And ever since that time, there has not been anything like it as far as people taking pictures with hundreds of orbs in them. So I think there was an energy here in the air preceding that storm, and that energy reacted with the groundwater in the aquifer beneath Serpent Mound. and it produced this anomaly on the ground or in the crop. And a good example of how storms produce these things. There's an aquifer up at the Mound City group in Chillicothe, and that one was more recent, but it was 47 circles in one crop circle. It looked like kind of like a jellyfish, one big circle, and then 7 circles around that, and then each one of those had small circles. And come to find out, this was actually a copy of a fractal particle identified in 1982. So here's something that is microscopic being produced in a field of corn, if you will. The corn was bent in 3 dimensions. It was bent on right angles. So every strip of corn was bent like you can't bend corn and not break it. And this was bent like PVC pipe, just perfect right angles. The field was in 3 dimensions, and somebody had actually flown over it, taking pictures, and became disoriented. And this was like 2 days before harvest. So it had sat there that whole time across from the Mound City group along the Scioto River all season long. They don't know when it was made. But this crop was harvested. And of course, the farmer gave the people permission to go in and do a study on it. And that's when they figured out that it was a copy of a fractal particle. And you can actually go on, I believe it's ICCRA. I believe it's International Crop Circle Researchers Association on the internet, and you can see a picture of this crop circle. But they appear around here, and it's another one of those phenomena, if you will. But I think a lot of it has to do with the electromagnetics in the ground. And it's producing things that people normally don't see.
The geometric patterns that you said was discovered in the pictures of the orbs, was there any documentation on those patterns that existed there?
No, I don't think anyone ever did anything. It kind of looks like a geodesic dome, if you will. We had another instance of orbs. We were doing a drumming at one of our events, and it was an international drum. There was probably 100 people in a circle. Actually, there was 2 circles, and the Native Americans were in the middle drumming, and then there was different African American groups around that. And we were in the basement of this building called the Heritage Lodge, and it was at night, and that whole building was just vibrating from the drumming, and people were taking pictures. And one of the videos, actually, it was a video that came back, and it showed this orb shooting across everybody that was drumming. And when you slowed it down and stopped that orb, there was actually a face in it. It's like, who the heck is that? So these orbs are like little spirits, some of them. And they appear. They've been noted at Serpent Mound quite a bit, where people have orbs dancing around them. It's a phenomenal place as far as activity like that. People see spirits there all the time. I caught one on camera. A lady had been meditating, and I walked by her and took a picture as I walked by, and she had her eyes closed, and her husband had just passed. And I got the picture back and looked at it, and her husband was sitting there in front of her looking at her. And it was like, okay, I didn't see it, but the camera did. So these things happen, and it's just an amazing, you never know what's going to happen next. That's what keeps it interesting.
How about UFO craft? Have you seen anything like that in the area?
We have, we've seen quite a few actually. I think the best part of the UFO situation was we had a kahuna come in from Hawaii, and his name is Reynolds, and he did some lectures with us at one of the conferences, and he says that he sees ships all the time, and when you don't see him, he can see them. And he said, I'm going to call some ships in for you. And I thought, well, yeah, I'm kind of skeptical about that. And phone rang one day and he says, "You need to go to Serpent Mound. Give us the date and the time." It was in the evening. It was in the summer. And one of our friends who lives in West Virginia, he's a physicist. He worked on the Chandra telescope. And so him and his wife, little one star, came out. She's a Native American. And I believe Terry's daughter was with us, Aurelia, and we sat down by Serpent Mound. There's a spring down there, a public spring where people get their water. And we were sitting down there by the edge of this spring. We had our chairs out. It was dark, kind of foggy. And Aurelia, Terry's daughter, I said, "Sit there on the edge of the spring. There's a big cement crock there, and I'll take your picture." And she's sitting there. There's nothing in the background. There's no life down there, no housing or anything. And I took her picture, it flashed, and we sat there for another half hour or so, and these lights came in beneath the clouds. It was starting to drizzle, and I looked like 6 or 7 lights came in and circled us and then left, just that quick. And I thought, well, wow, that's really cool. He was right. He called some ships in. Well, I went back and I put my picture on a bigger monitor where I could see it. And in back of Aurelia, in the darkness of the ledge, in back of her was 7 lights forming a triangle. And I thought, wow, they were there the whole time. So it kind of makes a believer out of you when things like that happen. You get that validation that, wow, it really is. And people really do see these things when no one else sees them. It's just a gift. So
You think
I don't
the
discount
fact
anything.
that do you think the anomaly of the electromagnetic field of the crater makes it easier for them to be there or to be seen there?
You got to wonder. I mean, there's things in the crater. There are minute particles of chromium, cobalt, nickel, iron, zinc, and iridium. Of course, iridium is very rare, and people think that it's just everywhere on the ground, but it's not. I mean, you got to figure 300 million years is a long time, and there's been a lot of erosion on the surface. So a lot of the surface details have been erased, if you will. But there's still remnants of these unusual particles in the ground that shouldn't be here naturally. And so, do the magnetics, I think it's the magnetics and the faulting system have a lot to do with what's going on. I mean, faults affect weather patterns everywhere on Earth. Perfect example is drive out of Dallas Fort Worth on 35 and head south, and you're going to find that 35 is built with the fault going right down the very center. So you got northbound lanes on one side, southbound on the other, and a fault going down the center of it. And when you get thunderstorms in that area, and we've experienced it here as well, you'll have a division. You'll have dry on one side and raining on the other. So they actually affect weather patterns. So if that magnetic anomaly can affect a cloud, it's certainly affecting other things.
How do you think that impacts the physical body? You've said that people will go there and sometimes there's a dizziness or a little disorientation that happens within the physical system. What do you think is impacting the body that causes that?
Maybe it's just the moisture in your body. I don't know how it affects. It's just that you're there to observe it. And, just like the doppelgangers, seeing 2 of something and there's only 1 naturally. It just allows things like that to come through and be seen. I haven't really tried to guess at what causes all this or why. I'm in the middle of it and I'm observing it, and I like to talk about it because I think people need to know about it.
You said that your house particularly is haunted because of probably these electromagnetic anomalies that are there. Do you know of any other places, any other homes in the area that have that same phenomena happening?
Oh yeah, right within 2 miles of here, there's the Wickerham Tavern, and that is one of the oldest taverns in Ohio. It was built in 1805. and it's like the tavern that was here in 1805, the Cannon Inn. And so there was three taverns in this part of Ohio, southern Ohio. One was built in 1797. That's a Treber Inn. Now I don't know if that's haunted, but I know the Wickerham is, and it's in all of the haunted books of Ohio. It's a pretty famous place actually, where a stagecoach driver got murdered and they never found his head. And there's all these people that talk about a guy standing in the middle of the road on the curve where this house is, because it's still there today. And he's standing there holding his head. And there's been 7 people killed on that curve since I've lived here. And you got like, what the heck? Are people just seeing this apparition and driving off the road or being distracted, or what happens there? So, and there's also, and that has a lot to do, the fault line runs right through there, down the road. And on one side of the road on the curve, it could be raining. And on the other side, it's dry. In the wintertime, you could have ice halfway through the curve and dry on the other side. So that causes all kinds of accidents with people not aware of it. So there are physical things that are, I mean, they're there all the time. It's just, are you there to observe them when they happen? Somebody had just did a video on the Wickerham Tavern, and we noticed in the video this rocking chair was on the porch and it was rocking all by itself. And no one ever noticed that. My wife called it out and posted it. But it's those things like that. You just have to observe them. And, you can't go by what people are telling you all the time, like in books or even on a podcast. You really just have to come here and hope you see something like that.
What else
But
have
don't
you
discount it.
what else have you personally experienced in your home or in that area that that you felt like was something that probably, like where I live, I would not experience that?
I've experienced spirit animals. I'm a deer hunter, and of course I love deer meat. Venison is delicious. And I was out hunting not too far from here, but I was in a tree, and this monster giant buck walks under my tree. He's 10 yards away, and I shot him with an arrow, and I watched the arrow go in him. And I waited a little bit, and it got down on my tree, and I see his tracks, but there's no blood and there's no arrow. And I'm going, what? And I followed it as far as I could, and the tracks disappeared. I never found them. And I thought, oh, this is really weird. And I got my metal detector out. Actually, I went back to the site looking for my arrow, and I couldn't find it. And it wasn't until years later that I had talked to a gentleman, Chief Golden Light Eagle, and he's since passed away, but he used to come out to our conferences. He's a Yankton Sioux Sundance chief. And I told him his story, and he says, oh yeah, there's spirit animals. He says, and if you shoot them, they usually take the arrow with them or the bullet. And they're just passing through, it's kind of like an honor to see them. And you can shoot them all you want, but you're not going to kill them. They're just passing through and showing themselves to you. So I think it's kind of like the Bigfoot situation. They're interdimensional beings, and if you're lucky enough to see one, you're blessed. I mean, it's just and remember, a lot of people, when they see things like that, they discount them. Like I just saw an owl there, and I turned around and it was gone. It disappeared, and you go like, well, maybe it was a spirit animal, and you were just lucky enough to acknowledge and see it. So I think a lot of that is they present themselves to you. Like maybe you have to be in the right frame of mind, and you're just, or in that situation where it presents itself and you acknowledge it. So, and in the house itself, there's been so many instances of my energy being duplicated, and I've never seen myself. It's always in front of me. So a prime example, I was going on a dig because I excavate rocks. Sometimes we get up early in the morning and we take off and go somewhere for a few hours. and I was 6 o'clock in the morning. I told my son-in-law, be up and be ready to go. And I opened up my bedroom door, and his bedroom's across the way. And he opened up his door, and I forgot something. So I closed my door and I went back in the bedroom, and I hear Frank, he's my son-in-law, he's talking. And I go, well, who he's talking to? And I opened up the door again and looked out, and I said, who are you talking to? And he says, looked at me and he says, well, I was talking to you. You just walked downstairs. I said, no, I was in the bedroom. And so it kind of made a believer out of him that there are things that you can't explain. Another example, my carpenter, he was working the room up here, actually in the bathroom off the bedroom. And I was sitting on a little step down into the bathroom from the bedroom talking to him. And he's just working away and putting in a new toilet and the floor and all that. And I goes back in the bedroom, and I was doing something, and he just starts talking, and I poked my head in there. I said, who are you talking to? And he says, looked at me, and he just turned white, and he says, well, you just got up and walked into the closet. And I said, no, I've been in the bedroom the whole time. And that guy kind of packed up his tools and never came back. He always makes excuses when I want him to do some work. No, I can't go out there today. I got something else to do. So kind of made a believer out of him, but not really. He's just like, that place is weird. I'm staying away from it. So there are some people that don't accept spirits, and they think they're evil, or, something's not right there.
Yeah, it can
But
be a little scary for some people. Has
yeah.
anyone else in your household or other people that you know, also what I'm going to call bilocate, where there's at least an image of you somewhere else that people can see? Do you know of anyone else that's happened to other than yourself?
Yeah, well, it's happened to my wife.
Mhm.
Uh, she was in the rock shop, was 50 feet away from my house. And between my house and the rock shop, we have a sweat lodge and an EP set up. And frequently we have sweat lodges. People come in, and we just had one week ago. But we were all in the shop. It was summer solstice, I believe. We were really busy. And we were going to have a lodge. And we were all in the rock shop waiting on people. And Terry, sitting in the back of the shop at a desk, and she just had her street clothes on, and t-shirt, pants. And we're talking to customers back and forth. And my son-in-law was there with us. And I said, you need to go in the house. He had to get something out of the house. And he goes down the walkway past the sweat lodge, and he comes back into the shop, and he says, Terry is at the sweat lodge. And I said, no, Terry's sitting back there at the desk. And he says, no, she's out there with people dressed in regalia, pointing at things on the sweat lodge to people. I said, no, she's sitting right there. And so that happens. That was just one instance, but it's also happened to the people that did the research on the house initially. I haven't had anybody out since then. We just decided that we don't want the spirits bothered. Why come in and tell them to leave, or try and, put little gadgets up and measure them and whatnot. So, but we had a group come out, and they were friends, and they came. There was three groups. There was 6 people in all, and they broke up into teams, 2 in each team. And the one lady and her mother went upstairs to my daughter's room, where there's always been a lot of activity. And after an hour, the one gal come downstairs and opened up the door, and my wife and I are sitting on the front porch. It was in the summertime, and they had the house wired for sound. And she opens the door and comes out on the porch, and Terry says, how's it going up there? And she didn't say anything. She walks down the steps, goes in the front yard, stands there for a little bit, comes back in, she doesn't look at us or anything, and goes back upstairs. An hour later, she comes downstairs, and Terry says, how come you didn't talk to me when you came down an hour ago? And she goes, I've been up there for 2 hours. I didn't come downstairs. So those are the kind of things that go, aha, it wasn't her that came downstairs. It was her doppelganger or, some energy that looked like her. And it's always very physical. It's not, like an apparition where it's just a little brief whiz of a light, a dark light or something moving quickly. It's three-dimensional, just like I'm sitting here.
Exactly. And I have heard of things like that before, and at times even, deceased individuals that they know that they're deceased, but they'll see them and they look exactly as if they were three-dimensional in the body. And sometimes they're even able to talk and interact. So obviously your wife was able to talk and interact with the people outside when she was seen and was in two locations. So do you think that it's really an essence of yourself that's able to kind of bilocate like that?
I think so. I think it's just the magnetics of the area that enable that to happen. Now, the thing is, when you see these apparitions or doppelgangers, if you will, or duplicates, they're not wearing the same clothes. They're always wearing something different, but they're the same people. So go figure. Are they in another world doing something else? The parallel universe theory. Yeah, you just got to wonder, what are we tapping into? And the only way we can do it is just keep documenting it and talking about it and thinking about it. And when it happens, recognize it. I mean, when it happened to my cat, it was recent. I got a cat. I got 14 cats here, and most of them are outside. There's a few that stay inside, but I have one that every time she comes into my bedroom, if the door's closed, there's a little handle there, and she can wiggle it and make a noise. So when that handle's wiggling, I know it's this one cat. Her name's Ruth, and I let her in. Well, the other day I'm in bed and watching TV, and the door handle wiggles. I go, oh, Ruth. I get up and I let her in, and she goes walking in the bathroom, but she doesn't acknowledge me. Usually when she comes in the room, she says hi. She'll do a little meow and struts in the bathroom and drinks her water or whatever. Well, she disappears in the bathroom, and I sit back down in the bed watching TV, and it wasn't 5 minutes. Here goes the door handle again. And I'm going like, okay, humor me, right? So I opens up the door, and lo and behold, it's Ruth. It's the cat. She comes prancing in, but this time she said hi. And she went in the bathroom, and the other one, we look in the bathroom, she's gone. So where did the other cat go? It's like her energy was in front of her. Maybe she had intentions of coming in here and she didn't for some reason, but her energy did. And the energy turns into a full-blown three-dimensional being. And then when you observe it, you go like, normally I probably would have said, maybe I've just had too much to drink, but I don't drink. So, like, it's unexplainable, but yet it's acceptable around here because it happens.
For sure. Do you have any memory? I mean, is there any memory of that split or the two activities that you're involved in? Do you have do those overlap with one another, or you just have absent of memory of one of them?
What do you mean by that?
Well, like for instance, when your wife was in the office as well as outside talking with the people, does she have where is her consciousness? Where is she storing memory? Is it talking to the people, or is it in the office?
No, it was interacting with the customers in the shop. So you're right. When this happens, we're usually preoccupied doing something. It's not like we're sitting there meditating or, where you have an empty mind and things. I mean, that happens too, but in a different way. Usually we're interacting or doing something, and our energy is actually moving around, but it's just the fact that it gets split and then, reproduced someplace else. Recently, we had a guy come in who had been at Burning Man, and he was at a wedding at Burning Man, and he said that my wife and I were performing the wedding. And I said, no, we were right here in Ohio. We weren't at Burning Man. So whoever you've seen out there wasn't us. So when you hear about that, it's like bilocation of thousands of miles. That's kind of strange too.
It is. Has anyone ever seen both of the characters at the same time?
No,
No.
that has yet to happen,
Yeah.
as far as I know. I mean, but in close proximity.
Mhm.
Now, and here's another thing. The entity, the one that's reproduced, has energy enough to do things like open doors. So they're not like I mean, they're 100% physical and able to do things. Um, the one example that happened to me recently, I was going out to my store, and I stopped for a second because I had to do something again. But my intentions were to go out there, open up my store, go in there and turn my alarm off like I do every day. And for whatever reason, I was stopped from doing what I was intending on doing. And just a matter of a minute. And I went out there, and when I got to my shop, I unlocked my door and my alarm was going off.
Hmm.
So what does that say? It
Right.
says that my intentions of
Mhm.
going out there were fulfilled by my energy, but yet I wasn't there. But whatever energy was there actually went inside and set the alarm off.
Yes. Well,
So
that
that,
is fascinating. You know, these are things that I contemplate regularly. I've been intuitive for a very long time and have been very aware that, you know, I am aware when people are thinking about calling me or, you know, thinking about appearing, and often can see into the, you know, the future. Whether I bilocate, I don't know. No one's ever really said they saw me someplace else, but certainly inside my own mind, I bilocate, where I can have perception, you know, in more than one place. But this is fascinating, where you're tying it down to something that's actually a physical thing that has an impact upon that.
mhm.
Um, so, you know, whether we can carry that around in our own minds, some kind of an anomaly that just goes with us as people, and also then is grounded into the earth itself. This is just fascinating. It's much food for thought.
Oh, for sure. And I just never discount anything as far as that goes. I know that, there are powers that be, and of course, we don't understand it all. And I think a lot of it is we're told not to. We're programmed as youngsters not to do certain things and or see certain things, or and it's just part of our programming. And I think we're at an age now where people are starting to ask questions, and you question the authority, and you go like, wait a minute, you're not supposed to do that, but yet we just observed something going on that's impossible. There it is, but yet you discount it and say, oh no, that's evil. It's a spirit, and you shouldn't dabble with that. Or so there's a whole side of this life that we're brought up being trained not to see it. It's kind of like the Native Americans not seeing the ships when they came across the ocean because they never saw a ship before. So how would they know what a ship looked like? So they discounted. They didn't even see it on the horizon. And there they were. And so when you're programmed not to see certain things, when you do see them, you just discount it automatically. So I think we're at an age in this timeline, if you will, where people are starting to seriously question the authority, and say, maybe we should go back and look and reprogram and start over, basically. And I've seen a lot of that with people that are being introduced to spirituality,
For
and
sure.
they're looking at it differently.
Absolutely. Well, I really appreciate all of your input and insight today. This is just there again, opened up a whole slew of questions for me that hopefully we can talk again in the future, And I really so very much appreciate you being a guest on the show today. But I'm going to go ahead and end our interview now. And thank you.
All right. You're welcome.